My name's Tim Thurston from Team I, and I'm talking with Jamie Martin of Correct Careers Coaching. So next in our series of discussions, and today we're going to be talking about prospecting. Now, very, very important for any business to have a good sales funnel, and prospecting starts at the beginning of that process. For me, though, Jamie, it's important to have a good understanding of who your target clients are. Many of the organisations that I've worked in, we've talked about creating a persona so that we can actually visualise what our target prospects look like. What do you do?
Yeah, for me, it's a very similar approach. As you mentioned, you don't really have a business if you don't have clients and cash flow. And both of that comes from prospecting. We all agree that no one really likes to be sold to, but the way I talk about it nowadays when I do my training on sales is building relationships. So what I would probably do for prospecting is first of all, identifying your customer profile. And these are the clients that are more likely to buy from you. And you can do this from, looking at the competitors in the market. You can do this by understanding who your current customers are and, looking for similar customers to them or clients to them. And also just from looking, around research and what you offer and what the needs are of your potential prospects. So the way I would look at this, you can kind of look at it as like a market map. I know that's usually for looking at your competitors, but if you talk about market mapping for, your future clients, it could be your customers' customers, it could be someone else within the supply chain, or your customers' competitors. Those are probably more likely the prospects who will buy from you because of the need for your service or product. And it's really just identifying who they are, the demographics, and also building a relationship. So what's your thoughts on looking at your competition, Tim, and how you can utilize that information to prospect a new business?
Yeah, I think it's really important. For me, throughout my career, I've convinced myself that it's much better to talk to someone who is already in the marketplace for your product. So either they've got an interest or they're using a competitor, and then all you've got to do is convince them to come and use you. If they're not in the market for the product or seemingly not at the moment, i.e. they're really cold, they're not using a competitor, then you've got to convince them that they have the need for your services. Whereas if you talk to someone who's perhaps using a competitor or you've been referred to, even better if it's a referral, then they're already warmed and probably quite a long way down that sales funnel, in as much as that they're interested in your products and services. And now it's a question of them getting into the comparison stage where they're actually considering who they're going to use, not whether they need the service.
Yeah, I don't want to sound too cheesy, but people do buy from people. And funny enough, we were actually talking about this earlier. No, it is about relationships, especially in this day and age. People aren't just after, the cheapest price. It's about, who do you trust? So know, like, and trust. It's about building rapport because then you've got a good relationship with someone. When we talk about prospecting, we're going to go through some different areas of it and provide some top tips to the listeners. But it's really talking about a cadence, which means a series of actions, a series of touch points you will do with your potential prospect in order to build a relationship with them. And I feel without this sort of process, you can't just go in for a cold sell. You effectively need to turn a cold conversation into a warm conversation, because then when you get through the buy-in journey of your future client, you can then understand what their needs are, what you are offering, your unique selling points, and then also you can close with confidence. And if you are in a negotiation situation, if you've already built a relationship with someone, then certainly it will make it that situation a lot easier. So if we start with social media, what would you say are the benefits and weaknesses of using social media for prospecting, Tim?
So social media gives you a broad approach. There's thousands of people, thousands of businesses out there that could be interested in your services. And of course, you can reach those very, very easily. How effectively is a matter of conjecture. My experience of social media, it's very, very good for building brand awareness. You can get very good engagement, but to sell over social media, you've still got to follow that process through. So you might be lucky enough to get as far as an introduction and make someone a warm prospect from social media. But there's a lot more to do following that. So I think it's something that is to be considered and it's part of your mix. But I do think if you can get down to some of the other approaches, which we'll come on to in a moment, they would be more a priority for me. What do you think, Jamie?
Yes. So first of all, social media marketing is about brand awareness, and it is at no cost. So that is a good thing. There's various different platforms, but there is a lot of noise. So that is a disadvantage. I would probably say use social selling about 10% of the time. 90% should be sharing your expert advice in articles, which we'll talk about in another series, and also sharing information, self-help guide, shall we say. But your aim of really utilizing social media is to engage and arrange a discovery call, and then you can get to know each other more, or a video conference. So if we talk about cold calling, obviously no one likes a cold call. What's your experience in cold calling, Tim?
Yes, well, in my formative career, I worked in newspapers, and I was an advertisement representative a long, long while ago. And the brief to me from my sales manager was, you need to know the story behind every door on your patch. So that was the doctrine, and it was great fun doing it, to be honest. You had to take a deep breath early on, and after a while you then became quite good at it, and I found my way of getting their attention, and I was quite good at doing a good fact find, understanding whether they were a prospect or not. So a lot of it was just hard yards and sifting through to find out the warm prospects. But it was kind of what I was brought up on, and nothing's really moved me from that. If you know your target audience, if you know the persona that you're looking for, then there is just that sifting process of having to work through. There is nothing better than having a conversation directly. Nothing better than a face-to-face conversation ultimately, but of course that's very, very expensive to do. So you work back from that, and you use the telephone and obviously Zoom meetings and things like that. But depending on the value of the prospects, you've got to work out how much time you invest in that process. But moving them from a cold prospect to a warm prospect to a sale, there is a well-defined process, and it does take hard yards, Jamie.
Yeah, and I will agree. I mean, you've got to start somewhere. So a cold call will turn into a warm call, but that's actually when you can use social media and engaging with someone on social media initially to turn a cold call into a warm call, because you've got a bit of a relationship. So there is ways around it. But I will say with calling, some people say, I don't know if I really like cold-in. I think you've got to understand who you're actually speaking to, because they may have different learning styles. It could be visual, it could be auditory, or it could be kinesthetic. So cold calling or warm calling for some prospects is actually the way to go. And what about emails, Tim? Are you still reading emails for prospects?
Well, I think emails have a place to play. You've got to send very, very good messages, and you've got to have a really good message ID. So it's got to grab their attention. Like anything, you've talked previously about ADA, you've got 2 seconds to grab someone's attention. So whatever the message is in the identity of that email has got to grab people's attention. And then probably it's 40 emails result in 5 being read and maybe 1 response. It's something like that, of that order, depending on what the topic is. So don't expect to make too many direct links from email. It is very much a numbers game, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I would say the same for emails, newsletters, or posts. First of all, the text of the copy has got to be compelling. Why should someone actually sit there and read what you're saying to them? So usually the subject line is actually quite important, but you can do other unique things as well. So voice messaging, you can leave a voice, an audio message on LinkedIn, for example, and that's proven to be quite well as sending people personalized links. I think the more personal you are about something, then the more likely they're going to build a relationship with you. So just to finish off a couple of others, I mean, networking events and meetings, we all know in person, you can read someone's body language, which is 93% non-verbal, and it is a good way to prospect and build relationships. And what's your sorts of thoughts on them? Because we are in a virtual world now, Tim, so video conferencing and webinars are probably the more likely aspect of prospecting we'll be doing at the moment.
As long as you're reaching your target audience, they're well worth doing. Be careful that you don't waste your time, and try and be as specific as you can. One final point from me, Jamie, is that it's very important, you're very good at this, to have a good database system, whether it's proprietary software or your own spreadsheet. But once you've started to get prospects onto your sales pipeline, you've got to make sure that you properly manage the data and follow up.
Yeah, and I'm just going to finish with, it is a process. It's probably, amalgamation of all of the touch points we spoke about today. And of course, celebrate your wins through each point of the process. because, you know, each development of the relationship with a new prospect is a win. So good luck, everyone.
Thanks very much, Jamie. Interesting as ever.